Features.
Hello and welcome to the Boxing Features Review Show, the weekly series where I take a look at all the biggest fights that happened around the world over the past weekend. We've got a lot to get through today, so without further ado, let's get to the fights.
Boxing Features.
We start off with the Frank Warren BT doubleheader. We have Friday and Saturday night. Two really solid fight nights with a lot of his good prospects and good contenders getting a good fight. A lot of step-ups as well. We had Danny Ball versus Sam GILLEY. Ball got the unanimous decision in the end, but it was a close fight and really entertaining to kick off the Friday night show. We had David Adelaide. He continues to impress with a round 1 KO, and he had a late replacement of opponent and he still looked good, which I was really impressed with. Brad Foster looked really good against Alvaro Rodriguez. He got the unanimous decision there. I've said before how much of a fan I am of Brad Foster. I think he's class and he showed it on Friday night. Dennis McCann, I've said it before, one of my favourite prospects, not only in the country but in the world. He looked really good. He got the unanimous decision over Luis Moreno. Big step up for him, that. And he was looking for the knockout at some points, but it didn't come, which is a shame. But he looked really classy. I like his head movement. And he's still so young, so he's definitely not got his manpower yet, but he certainly will grow into it, and he could be a serious threat at such a young age. The world's his oyster, and if he keeps progressing at the rate he is, because I can see improvements every fight, then we could be on to something really special. Main event in the Friday night ended up being Zach Parker versus Vaughn Alexander, and Parker got a round 2 stoppage, and I was really impressed. Alexander, a solid, hard opponent actually, and Parker, it was his debut on BT Sports, and he impressed and he showed that he's a super middleweight to be reckoned with. And he called out Canelo after, because obviously he is high up in WBO rankings, and I think he's probably going to be mandatory for the WBO super middleweight title, which is currently held by Billy Joe Saunders. And obviously we've got that huge fight in May between Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo, so obviously I think he's hoping for the Canelo fight, because that will be a huge payday for him. But again, I just hope Billy Joe beats Canelo. But I like him. I really do like Zach Parker, and he's one of them fighters, the more you see of him, the more you will like him. And not forgetting also on that card, we had Sam Maxwell with the late replacement, and he come through that. No questions asked, really. It's just a shame he couldn't fight for the British title against Akeem Ennis-Brown. But there's always a next time, and let's just get him moving on, Sam Maxwell, because he's getting on. He's not the youngest, but he's had that elite amateur experience, so he's ready now. He's ready. He's had, 12 to 15 fights as a professional, and it's time for him to get a big move up. Then it was a Saturday night through the Frank Warren and BT. We had a whole host of fighters, including Umar Khan with his professional debut. LYNN looked fantastic, might I add. He had a big step up against Sebastian Perez, and he got a unanimous decision. He looked absolutely class, and he's so early on his career, actually, and I thought he was going to be moved a lot slower than he is being. But I'm all for that, because he's showing every little step up he's taking how good he is, and let's have another step up, and let's see if he can make that next step, and then the next step, because again, he's a young fighter, he's constantly improving, and I'm all for these step up more rapidly. Because of the pandemic, there needs to be rapid steps up, and I think that way we get to see who are the best fighters, certainly in Britain. Nathan Gorman also got a round 2 stoppage of Pavel Sauer. I thought that was fantastic for him, really. I said in the preview show that it would give him so much confidence if he looked good here, and he's rebuilt himself really well since the Dubois loss, and I want to see that step up now to British level, probably again. I like the Fabio Wardley fight. We'll be talking about Fabio Wardley a bit later. I know they're on, they're promoted by the one Frank Warren, one Eddie Hearn. But if they can make that, I'd really like that fight. And I'm just pleased for Nathan Gorman that he's rebuilt himself in 18 months, 2 years, couple of fights in the middle of a pandemic as well. And I'm excited for where Nathan Gorman can go from now. And I'm excited to see if he can improve. Willie Hutchinson versus Lennox Clarke. Now, and I said in the preview show, do not write off Lennox Clarke. He's a great, great fighter and he can do a lot, especially against such a young Willie Hutchinson who we hadn't seen at a higher level. And I thought Lennox Clarke was a good bit of matchmaking, and it was a tough bit of matchmaking, and Lennox Clarke ended up knocking Willie Hutchinson out fairly brutally, didn't he? Fairly brutally. We could just go through the fight. First 2 rounds, I thought Willie Hutchinson looked really good, to be fair. He was coping with Lennox Clarke's trying to dog him from early on. He coped with that really well. He did cope with that really well. Catching him on the inside, some nice uppercuts. And then, from round 3 to 4, Lennox Clarke was having a bit more success getting on the inside, them hooks, trying to close the distance, some to the body. And round 5, Clarke just landed that super right hand that rocked Willie Hutchinson to the core. I don't think anyone could recover from that punch. That was beautiful. It made me gasp when it landed. Willie Hutchinson was then all over the place. Lennox Clarke finished the job within the next 5 to 10 seconds. Great call from the ref to jump in and stop the fight. Well done, Lennox Clarke. Win of your career, by far. And Willie Hutchinson can come again. He's still so young. He's still got a tremendous amount of talent. He was caught by a fantastic shot by a solid fighter in Lennox Clarke. So I definitely think Willie Hutchinson can come again, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he comes back and how that fight will affect him. Because if he is as good as people say he is, then he will take that loss on the chin and he will come back even bigger and even better. Gibraltar now, Sky box office. What a night it was Saturday night. What a great night of boxing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We kicked off with Yusuf Kamari versus Kane Baker. And well done, Kamari. Well done, sir. It was a fantastic performance. He got a round 5 stoppage of Kane Baker. I said how much I love Kane Baker. It was a story of last year. But he got rid of him. And I think he's a superb talent, and I want to see him push on pretty quickly now. He's now being guided by Dillian Whyte, which is fantastic. Anyone being guided by Dillian Whyte, because Dillian Whyte gets you an opportunity, and not just a opportunity, lots of them. And Dillian Whyte sees great fighters, and if you're being managed by Dillian Whyte, I have the trust that say he's going to be exciting, and he will certainly do well. Then, another win of his career, Nick Webb versus Eric Pfeiffer. I said in the preview show I had no idea which way this was going to go. It was an absolute pick'em, and Nick Webb looked phenomenal. He looked brilliant, showed his power, and got the round 2 stoppage. And now we're looking at an Alan Babbage fight. And how exciting would that be? That would be phenomenal. It would literally be bombs away. I can't see that one lasting any more than 3 rounds, but let's get it made quickly, because that's entertainment right there. Chris Kongo versus Michael McKinson, and that was an intriguing fight to watch, wasn't it? Michael McKinson come out in the first 3 rounds like a raging bull. Honestly, he was on Chris Kongo. I don't think anyone was expecting it. Knocked down Chris Kongo fairly early on, and it was an uphill battle from there for Kongo. And Kongo got back in the fight, definitely. Towards the latter parts, Mickinson changed his game plan, and it just become a really intriguing and interesting matchup. But those first 3 rounds where MCKINSON was just on him, come out and started superbly, won the fight for Michael MCKINSON and in the end got a unanimous decision. Then it was the much anticipated debut of Campbell Hatton, the son of Ricky Hatton, and when he come out to Blue Moon, it sent shivers down my spine, and I'm sure it did for anyone who was a fan of Ricky Hatton. It was absolutely fantastic. That ring walk alone was enough for me. And he performed well. He did perform well. He said how nervous he was and the amount of nervous energy he used up, because those 4 rounds, you'd think he'd just done a 12-rounder. He was gasping by the end of it. But the pressure was enormous. He dealt with it well. You could tell he was eager for the knockout, which anyone is on their pro debut, especially with so many eyes on him. And I think he coped really well. He certainly showed that he had a bit of what his father used to have. Those body shots, he was crunching them, the left body shots, and he can only get better from here. And it was a really good starting block that he laid for himself on Saturday night. He had pure aggression, no steps backwards. Defence was leaky at some points. But let's not forget that Jesus Ruiz was incredibly durable. He would have knocked out so many opponents. So, hats off to Ruiz. And I'm just looking forward to seeing Campbell Hatton's career playing out. Apparently he's out on May the 1st on the undercard of Derek Chisora versus Joseph Parker. Quick turnaround, I like it. He needs to be out regularly. He needs to get that experience, which he lacks through amateur experience. So it's going to be slow. But I'm so excited to see his career. And I just hope he copes with the pressure. He coped with that first test, because that week was so intense. Every podcast, every news outlet, every boxing YouTube channel, it was like Campbell Hatton, Campbell Hatton, Campbell Hatton. And for your first fight, I could imagine that would be incredibly intense. Incredibly intense. So he handled that first week brilliantly. Now let's just see if he can carry on doing what he's doing and then just working on his boxing, because if he carries on doing that, then we're looking at someone who can sell thousands of tickets, he can get hundreds of thousands of eyes on the sport, and a brilliant boxing talent, because Matthew Hatton, his uncle, said he's constantly improving, and I believe him. And I think with what we've got from his debut and what we'll see, we could be on to something special, and I really hope so, because that would be amazing. Next up, super welterweight British title fight, and it was Ted Cheeseman versus James Metcalf, fight of the night, domestic fight of the year so far, epic war. And what fight is Ted Cheeseman in where it isn't entertaining? Tell me a fight where it hasn't been entertaining. He is pure entertainment. I don't know anyone who didn't watch that fight and go, that was right. Anyone who watched that was like, wow. Absolutely wow. Both fighters, absolute round of applause. I thought Metcalf started off fairly well. The Sky commentary team disagreed, but I thought first 2 rounds were incredibly close. Then Metcalf, then Cheeseman, then Metcalf, then Cheeseman. Cheeseman was incredibly hurt. Metcalf was incredibly hurt. I think Metcalf was really badly hurt in round 5. Then in round 7, Cheeseman was hurt. Then in round 11, Cheeseman was hurt. Then in round 11 again in the same round. That round 11 was fantastic. A beautiful, beautiful knockout from Ted Cheeseman. He gets back that British title, and he deserves it, doesn't he? He has come through that gambling addiction. He's come through fantastic fight after fantastic fight. Let's look at his fights. He's had the Sergio Garcia fight where he just wasn't at the races that night. That was for the European title, and that weren't really nice to watch because he was defending with his head. He was just taking punches with his face. Then we had the Kieran Conway fight. Good fight at York Hall. That was a draw that night. Ted Cheeseman should have probably taken that decision. Then you had the Scott Fitzgerald loss, which was a controversial loss. I've said on the channel before, I think I scored it a draw that night. But what a great fight that was. Two fighters who are never in bad fights, Ted Cheeseman and Scott Fitzgerald. And then we had that domestic fight of the year last year in Sam Eggington versus Ted Cheeseman, which kicked off Fight Camp. And that was absolutely fantastic. And now we've got JJ Metcalf. What a fantastic resume over the last 2.5 years. And I think there's only one name on everyone's lips, Anthony Fowler. Let's see it. If Cheeseman wins that, you've got to call him the domestic king. You've got to. But this Super Welter domestically is so intriguing. We could have the Fitzgerald-Fowler rematch. We could have the Cheeseman-Fitzgerald rematch. We have the Cheeseman-Fowler. Don't forget Chris Conway, Hamza Shiraz, Sam Eggington, JJ Metcalf. It's absolutely stacked. And let's get some round robin going on here. And then the winner could go on to world level stuff, because Ted Cheeseman, 25, nearly 26 years old, he's still so young and he's had a fantastic career up to now. So now he decides whether he stays at the domestic level against Anthony Fowler or that rematch against the Scott Fitzgerald, which everyone wants, by the way. And it isn't domestic, really, is it? Because it's higher than domestic level. It's just two British fighters. Or does he want to move on to European and above? It's up to him, but all I know is that I'll be watching his fights because he's just entertaining, isn't he? And he just loves a good scrap, and we all love a good scrap. Co-feature Fabio Wardley versus Eric Molina. Fabio Wardley started off very apprehensive. His footwork and movement was fantastic. I was slightly concerned, I must admit, at the start, because just his footwork alone was backing Molina up into the corner, cutting off the ring fantastically, and then he'd get him into the corner and he weren't really throwing many punches. He was just looking for one punch. But as we entered the 3rd, 4th and 5th round, he started showing a bit more, getting a bit more comfortable in there, and round 5, bang! He got Molina out there, knocked him out. Molina could not beat the count, and it was a good test for Wardley. Wardley got hurt. It's the first time I've seen him hurt. He wasn't really hurt, but he got hit with a good shot, and that's always good. That's always good to see early on in the career, to see how he takes it, and it was a solid opponent in Eric Molina. It was at the end of his career, and we all know he's fought the likes of Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, just to name a couple there. So, where does Wardley go? And I said earlier on in the show, I'd love that Gorman fight, but I get the feeling that Wardley would... He's not overlooking Nathan Gorman by any stretch of the imagination, but I just have got a feeling he wants to go down a different route. Which, depending on who he chooses, which he will choose hard fights because he's managed by Dillian Whyte, and Dillian Whyte has that mantra that none of his fighters should take easy fights, which I love. So, it's one of those ones you can't call who he's going to fight next, because I could never have said the Molina fight. That come from nowhere. And he'll want to take another step up, but in the heavyweight division, it's so hard to take a step up, because sometimes, especially at the minute with this heavyweight landscape, those steps are incredibly big. So do you want another couple at that level of Eric Molina, or do you want to take that big step up, or do you want to go for the British title? Let's see where he goes, because I will certainly be following it, because I just love the story of the white collar background. It's something different, and I feel like it's something that a lot of fans are going to relate to, and I feel like Fabio Wardley will certainly become a fan-friendly fighter, and if he carries on the way he is, it won't be long until he's headlining his own Saturday night fight nights. Main event time now, and I was so nervous for Dillian Whyte. His career was really on the line. I really do believe that. And he come out first this time, and I just knew it. I did know, as soon as he come out, I thought, nothing is going to stop him tonight. He just looked like he was ready for war. He was bouncing up and down. You could tell in his eyes he would have gone to the trenches. He was ready to go where little men are ever prepared to go on Saturday night. And from the start, he took it to Alexander Povetkin. He showed Alexander Povetkin, you may have knocked me out, but I knocked you down twice and I've got power. And he backed that power up with a vicious, brutal knockout in round 4. And let's not forget, the 3 rounds leading up to that was like the beatdown before the final, now in the coffin. And I'm just pleased. I'm so pleased for Dillian Whyte. I love him. I think he's one of the nicest men in boxing, and we saw that at the end, didn't he? When he took over that stool to Alexander Povetkin, poured water on his head, and that just shows you the man he is. And let's not take anything away from Alexander Povetkin. What a career that man has had. He's fantastic. Done everything as a pro and amateur. Does he retire now? Maybe. Should he retire? I don't know. That's the honest answer. I don't know. He's 41 years of age and he just got knocked out by a world-class heavyweight. And does he want to take that step down? I don't think he will, because he's used to competing in the high echelons of the heavyweight division, and it doesn't get much better than that. So, we know he's a lovely man. Everyone says he's a great guy, great team. And if he chooses to bow out now, he will go down as a fantastic heavyweight boxer, certainly of this era. So well done to these 2 heavyweights in Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin, who have put on 2 fantastic fight nights now. 2 brilliant dramatic fights. And where does Dillian Whyte go from now? Everyone's calling for that Deontay Wilder fight. I've said for a long time that I think the Wilder fight is an incredibly dangerous fight for Whyte. I think that fight could be a 1 to 3 round shootout, which he could, well, we know Deontay Wilder could still knock anyone out. But now we don't know that if Dillian Whyte puts it on him like Tyson Fury did, will Wilder crumble like he did against Fury? We don't know that. So I think that's an incredibly intriguing and incredibly dangerous fight. Dillian Whyte said he'd like Trevor Bryan for the WBA regular heavyweight title, which is clever from Dillian. It's really clever from Dillian, and I really like that. That'd be really interesting build-up in America as well. And I'm all for that in the summer. And another potential avenue that he could go down, which I think would be fairly interesting, is we know, or certainly we hope, that the Fury-Joshua fight is happening in the summer and then they will fight again in the winter. And I think it's pretty clear now that if the Joe Joyce-Alexander Usyk fight happens for the interim WBO title, the winner of that will get elevated at some point in the winter. I don't think both fights between Fury and Joshua will be undisputed. I only think the first one will. So maybe Dillian Whyte could try and push for the winner of Usyk-Joyce for the WBO title at the end of the year. I think that'd be really interesting. I think both of those fights would be interesting. Usyk or Joyce. I think Dillian Whyte versus Joe Joyce has the potential to be an absolute heavyweight war classic. And stick a heavyweight world title in there. I think that'd be fantastic. And I'd love that to happen. I would really love that to happen. But then again, if he wants to go that WBA route, and don't forget, he's still that WBC interim title holder. and WBC Diamond. So he's incredibly high up with WBC, and he will be called for mandatory, but we don't know when the WBC will call their mandatory, because don't forget, the winner of those 2 fights between Joshua and Fury, will they relinquish some or all the titles after that? Will they go in their separate directions? We just don't know. But at least Dillian Whyte's come through that huge test in Alexander Povetkin, got the revenge, and he's got a lot of options, and I can't wait to see where he goes. I just pray that in the next 18 months he gets a world title shot.
Boxing features.
That's all for this week's review show. Make sure you join me on Friday for the preview show. We've got another huge week of boxing. They keep coming thick and fast, and I certainly am loving it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, share, and comment. And as ever, thanks for watching.
Boxing features.